All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pondering. It is 7:33. I'm a little late. Sorry. 7:30-ish a.m. here on, Tuesday, January 21st, 2020. It is my pleasure to be with you. I am your host, Joel Rissinger. This is the Pondering podcast and radio program. Wow, we're getting lots of loves and hearts today. Welcome to all of you. Welcome to Leanne. I see you there. I'm going to wave back. Great to have you and anyone else who I've missed who's on board or joining us here in a moment. This is a program where we ponder all things and we think them through and we talk about them and we have no holds barred. And we do so from an unabashedly, unashamedly, and unapologetically Christian perspective. We welcome other views. We can disagree without being disagreeable. That's what we say here on the show, but we certainly love it when Christians think. What a concept. Where we analyze and we let the faith that we have, the truth of the Word of God, inform and direct our decisions, our actions, our voting, our conversation, our opinions, etc., etc. Good morning to Susie. Good morning to Leah. We'll be joined here in a moment by our friend Tom Hanson. I do want to throw out a little thank you to Jerry because of the Steve McQueen video. He finally, he's been bugging me to watch this for months, and I keep forgetting, and I keep getting busy. So Karen and I watched it last night. It's a documentary about Steve McQueen, American icon, the untold true story of the spiritual quest of a Hollywood legend and how he came to faith and ultimately even spent time with Billy Graham and shared his testimony, and it's very good. My only complaint, Jerry, was it's so long. I thought they could have told the story in half the time, but it was nonetheless, it was good and it was interesting, and it answered a lot of questions, even about kind of how Hollywood has morphed and developed since the 50s, So it was good. Very well done. If you ever get a chance, guys, Steve McQueen, the American icon documentary. It's a good one. And Jerry, let me know if you want me to mail that back or just keep it for use with others. I can't remember what you said originally. So Susie loves Steve McQueen. You would. Yeah, he's a handsome dude, or he was a handsome dude. And Susie, we know I saw you commenting here. Your surgery's been postponed. We're sorry about that. But on the other hand, it's nice that you get a little reprieve and not being laid up this week. But we will continue to pray for that. Susie's having one more surgical procedure here for her hips, and she will be leaping tall buildings with a single bound, or as she's shown in a video on Facebook, if you noticed on her page, she will be doing gymnastics, a routine similar to the one she posted yesterday, so you can check that out. Suze, you're a woman. So, guys, if you want to participate here as we're talking, sharing, discussing, you can do so by typing into the live stream on the Pondering Radio page on Facebook. You can do it by emailing ponderingradio@gmail.com. Or you can, as Tom will be here, our official news anchor and historian, Tom Hanson, you can call us at 860-500-7163, 860-500-7163, and if we don't answer, leave a message. So, hi, Brenda. Brenda's on as Leah. Great to have you. It's good to see you this past weekend, too. All right, folks. Let's get some news. Let's get some Christian historical perspective. Let's talk to our friend Dr. Tom Hanson here. If I can get it to come on. Dr. Hanson, are you there? Whoop. What did I do? There. Do I have you back? There we go. I'm sorry, I cut you off a little bit, but you're back. Good morning to you. I see Eric's on this morning. Boy, we got a lot of people on today. Good morning, Eric. So, Tom, how are you, my friend? Oh, hold on just a second. That warrants a definite pity party here from the Pondering crew. Wah, 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 wah. We're so sorry. It's like 15 here, so you've doubled us. I don't know what it is, actually, but feels like it. Uh-huh. Yeah, I understand. Well, you won't last long probably, right? I would imagine it'll warm up by the weekend.
Yeah, I hope so. We got some better weather. We're back into the 50s and stuff, and so we're looking forward to that. I'm very happy to live in the 21st century where we can turn on the
Nice.
I'm very thankful that the Second Amendment rally in Richmond came off without any violence.
Yeah.
It's just nice that that's a part of America where you can um, you can express your viewpoints right there at the state capitol and the state government, and
Yeah.
we do have Second Amendment gun rights, and it's so neat to see all that happen peaceably.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy about that. And
Well, and I grew up in a place, Tom, where that was such a part of us. I joke about it that I was 18 before I knew that pickups didn't have gun racks as standard equipment. But
Yeah.
we hunted, we were target shooters. It was part of our family ethos and recreation. It's also partially how we fed ourselves. I mean, we hunted and we ate most of the time what we shot. Not always, but most of the time. And
wow.
I think back on my life and wonder that would have been so different. I mean, I shot competitively in the NRA when I was 12, 13 years old. I mean, it would have been bizarre to say, to have none of that, to have no access. And I think yesterday's rally was a good illustration for ponderers, because we always talk about, don't take the headlines at face value, think it through. If you had listened to the news 2 days leading up to 2 or 3 days prior to that rally, you would think that the only people showing up were white supremacist Nazi, haters who were going to commit acts of violence and, burn buildings and shoot people. And truthfully, from what I've heard, it was very peaceful. I've heard some interviews with some of the people that were there. One of them was a black gentleman who made a joke out of wearing whiteface to jab the governor. But he said, listen, the news is lying. He said, if you look around, I'm not the only one, and obviously I'm not a white supremacist. I'm an African-American male who values the Second Amendment and wants to be able to keep my guns. And he was very polite, very well, presented himself well. But if you listen to the news prior to that, you would be scared to death. For what? For nothing. Nothing happened. So.
And I was getting worried because there were stories, I don't know if they were true or not, that Antifa members were going to wear MAGA hats and inflict violence on the pro-Second Amendment. That apparently never happened.
Nope.
I wish our newscasters would get out and get on the air and say, not a whole lot is happening in the world today, and not a whole lot is happening tomorrow, and in the next few days, it's kind of just same old, and but everything's got to be a bombshell. Everything's got to be something
sensationalized and terror, fear, lust, all the negative things they sell, sadly, and that's what they promote. Susie says, with all those folks carrying, it was probably the safest place on earth.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I remember back in the day when I worked with you, for you. I remember doing a story on. It was like it was a puff piece, really. It was just it was an human interest story on guide dogs for the blind, for the youth magazine at the time. And I remember going to the place and spending the day there and interviewing the trainers and having a photographer taking pictures of the dogs and talking to people who were recipients of the dogs once they were trained and their stories. In other words, when I left, I felt immersed in that, the difficulty of it as well as the benefit of it, and I could write this really passionate piece about it, as opposed to today, which seems like, I don't know, it just seems like they get a clip or some comment they'll see on social media and run with it, and this gun story was a great example. There's going to be violence, there's going to be death, there's going to be carnage. And there could be, I mean, I don't want to minimize the fact that there are wackos out there, for sure, that would do harm. But don't report as if it's already happened. You know, cover the story as it is. Just the facts, ma'am. Sergeant Friday news reporting, that's what we need. Just the facts.
Yeah. That reminds me of, I think the man's name was William Shirer, journalist during the opening days, especially of World War II. But he studied, he became fluent in French and German in like 1921, 22, hopped the boat after graduation from college, went to Europe, became a journalist, fluent in both of those languages, so he could actually see the news that was going on. He was actually even in Germany until, I think, February of 1942, when the Nazis kicked him out. But it's like, man, that's a real educated journalist, and was probably pro-American. And now our media is totally anti-American, and I like, we're all biased. I like pro-American bias. As a real journalist, when that was a profession, gone are the days in the late 60s, early 70s when the three anchormen on the three major networks were the most trusted men in America. And boy, it's...
And when Walter Cronkite said, and that's the way it was, Thursday, January, you believed him. Like, that's the way it was. You didn't say, man, I wonder what his hidden agenda was. I wonder what he didn't tell us. I wonder what he spun. I wonder what he made up completely from scratch. You didn't think that. Maybe that stuff was still going on and we just didn't know. I suppose that's a possibility, but I don't think it was at the level it is now on Chicken Noodle News or, MSNBC or whatever. But
I actually got to meet him in L.A. He spoke at the Ambassador Hotel where Bobby Kennedy was shot in about 1981. And he said he was started out as a print journalist. And he said then went to TV. He said if you cannot organize a story until to the 22nd and 24th paragraphs, you're really not a journalist.
Yeah.
He was a correspondent during World War II, and the correspondents were begging to go on bombing runs, which is scary.
Yep.
But they finally said yes, and his lead, his one story was, I went through hell last night.
Yeah.
Just what it was like to be in an American bomber over Germany during World War II. I mean, gone are the days when we had journalists like that.
I have a patient now, Tom, in my hospice ministry, who's he was a gunner on a bomber who flew over most of Germans and most of the German raids. He's got a list that he kept, and he's got multiple medals and awards. What is he now? 95, something like that, 94. But his job was to try to shoot the German Luftwaffe planes before they'd take them out or take out his pilot. And he sat in a big glass bubble with a gunner turret. And he said the trickiest part was that later in the war, when the Germans had jets, because then they could fly above them and dive bomb from above. Typically, the old prop planes, they didn't get that high. They'd fly, the bombers would fly pretty high up, and they'd see them coming. They were slower too. Then he said all of a sudden they'd just come dropping from the sky straight down at him, and he'd have to be looking up the whole time. And It's amazing. He said about 50% of those who would fly out with him in the morning on those raids would not return. So if they sent 10 planes, they get 5 back. So the very fact that he survived, he and his wife have been married 70 plus years, just the sweetest couple. I'm so moved by that. I'm sad about what's happening with him, but, we're going to try to help her and him through it. But anyway, Susie said, Uncle Walter, yes, Walter Cronkite, he cried when they walked on the moon. I remember that. He choked up. Yeah, that he was very passionate about America and what happened. And again, he was a biased liberal journalist too, but he tended to stick to the facts. Eric says, God bless our fallen. Yeah, there's so many of those men who didn't come back from those raids. And sadly, for families, I mean, you get blown out of the sky at that height, they're not going to find you. You know what I mean? So many of the families have empty graves that they visit. But anyway, what else we got on the docket there, Mr. Tom? Boy, it's almost 10 of already. My goodness, this goes fast.
Yeah, this has been so fascinating. I'm enjoying it. One thing in recent and long-range history, January 20th, yesterday, that's always every 4 years, Inauguration Day, and I love getting on YouTube and looking at past inaugurations. President Trump has been president for 3 years now, and I like going back. I love hearing the oath of office. There's nothing like that.
Yeah.
And then when the Chief Justice says, "Congratulations, Mr. President," and then when they go into Hail to the Chief, I mean, it's just. I went back. I looked at President Trump, President Reagan, President Nixon, and there's one file on YouTube that has I think every inauguration since FDR and maybe even before, but it's just total Americana. The whole schedule of events on that morning is just. I mean, I get choked up. Because I'm very thankful to be an American. And
people don't realize that in most countries, it's really more of a. You don't really feel like you're a part of it. You're sort of a recipient of whatever the government decides to do, including who your main leader is going to be.
Yeah.
And when we participate, we get to feel that we are a part of it to some degree, even if our guy or gal didn't get in, so to speak. But it's different, and we don't always value it as we should. But I agree with you; it's a very moving thing.
Yeah. I've got a lot of historical quotes on my website, SouthCarolinaConservative.com, and I've got one from Mark Stein, who fills in for Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, I know Mark. I like Mark. He's funny.
Yeah, he's either, is he a Brit or Canadian?
Well, I think he was born in Great Britain, but I think grew up in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. He definitely has the strong British accent, which most Canadians would not have unless they have those roots. Yeah. But, he lives in Vermont now, right up near the border.
He's got a quote where he said, "In our time, to be born a citizen of the United States is to win first prize in the lottery of life. And as Britons did, too many Americans assume it will always be so. Do you think the laws of God will be suspended in favor of America because you were born in it? Great convulsions lie ahead, and at the end of it, we may be in a post-Anglosphere world." And I'm hoping, that's a 2 or 3 year old quote, and I'm thinking things are kind of going the other direction. So I'm hoping that's not going to prove to be true. But
well, we've at least hit the pause button, I think, by God's grace, in terms of moving away from our roots and our freedoms, and but. There's a very strong, powerful undercurrent. I don't know that they're the majority, but they're close, closer to that than ever in my lifetime, that want socialist values. They want abortion on demand. They want one world government, open borders, the whole shebang. And I don't know that they're going to go away. We certainly aren't educating our kids in a way that would allow there to be a momentum in the opposite direction. We're telling our kids America's evil. The Pilgrims were a bunch of marauding murderers. The democracy or representative republic government that we have is a failure. The socialist and communist countries are the new model. Certainly capitalism is evil. Christianity is absolutely destructive, has just obliterated the world, and so they should never consider that. Certainly don't want to read the Bible, and you can't do that for decades with children and now adults, and not see repercussions. And so I don't want to sound like doom and gloom here, but I don't think that it's going to go away. I just think we've been able to have a reprieve.
I pray daily for revival in America, and I think we're seeing it. And my hope is that it's only going to get better and better and better. And I'm looking at a map, a red and blue map, and I see too many areas where, to me, I see a cancer growing on America. And I do hope and pray that we're in the midst of an unending revival, and we really need a spiritual revival. I mean, I like what's going on in America, but really, it needs to be a spiritual foundation.
I agree with you 100%. And, obviously we know the end of the book. We win. The good news is that Jesus is Lord and we'll be victorious overall. I just think, we may have to go through some rocky road in the meantime here. If we understand prophecy correctly, that's almost inevitable. But, we've been given a little blessing, a time. Why? We always say that, right? Why would that be? Well, because God doesn't want... as Peter wrote, he's not slack, he's not lazy about his coming. He just doesn't want anyone to perish. He wants more souls in the kingdom, more people to walk with him, and so he's giving us time for that, and that's what we need to be busy doing, is helping them come to that place and grow. Susie says that opposition, is the squeaky wheel, the very loud minority, and I think there's a lot of truth to that too, especially since they control the media, education, a number of very public and very prominent venues, and that's part of why they get so much publicity. But there are a lot of us, the silent majority, perhaps in the shadows. And as you've often said, Tom, we have to speak up. we can't remain that way.
I'm seeing that more and more. Interestingly, on this date, 1702, Cotton Mather published his Magnalia Christi Americana, the glorious works of Christ in America.
Wow, cool.
George Washington called Cotton Mather undoubtedly the spiritual father of America's founding fathers, and Mather was talking even in the late 1600s that what's happening to our young kids today. We're straying from the truth. This is like 80 years after the Pilgrims landed, and this has been an ongoing battle. The battles we're facing now are not new. There's something also from like 1916 on this date. The National Board of Censorship, made up of film fans representing movie studios, that served as an industry watchdog to help avoid government censorship, says it will not accept nudity in film. I mean, as soon as a new medium comes in, it goes towards them.
Yeah.
And even back then, they were battling it, and they finally came up with a code that outlawed nudity, homosexuality, and all kinds of evil things. But there's sin everywhere. Whenever there's something new and good,
I think it's good for parents to always kind of debrief kids and be aware of some of these agendas. It's way too easy to have little Johnny come home with a picture he colored of green trees, and mommy says, "Well, what did you do today, Johnny?" "Well, we learned about taking care of the environment and planting trees." And we say, "Oh, that's great." I mean, it is good, right? It's easy to leave it at that, but it's good also to go deeper, to get some of the materials, to ask some questions, because you may find out that it wasn't just that they learned about planting green trees. They learned that we're all going to die in 10 10 years because of global warming that's our fault, and that we should basically eradicate humanity from the planet so as to preserve the planet. And I mean, they wouldn't say it that way, but that agenda is... And I think it's a great teaching opportunity. Go back to Genesis. Talk about what God meant when he said, dress and keep the earth. We are responsible to care for it, but it doesn't care. It doesn't dominate us. We rule over it. And so we do so with the idea that it's here for our use, to honor God with it, and that, God is sovereign over it, and we don't have to be afraid of being washed away in a tidal wave in a decade or so if we don't plant more trees or stop driving cars. And I think parents need to be aware of that and walk their kids through it, because there's no need for kids to be scared to death that they're going to die before they hit high school because somebody drove an SUV. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So, anyway.
It wasn't the way when we grew up.
No, not at all. There you go. The audience liked that one. I've got my laugh track going. Anyway, hey, we're about out of time here, Tom, so we'll do this again soon. We'll try not to have such a big gap in between. We wish you the best. God bless you. Don't freeze to death down there in that horrible, chilly winter you're having. It's 11 degrees, Eric said here today, so I was off by a little bit. But, think of your friends in the frozen north, the frozen chosen here, and we'll have you on again soon, all right?
Sounds great. God bless you all.
God bless you, too. And, folks, thank you for joining us. As always, we'll be back tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tell your friends, neighbors, and complete strangers about Pondering. We'd love to have them join us. You can still comment even after we're off the air at the Pondering Radio page of Facebook, via phone at 860-500-7163, or email ponderingradio@gmail.com. Stay in the Word, guys. Keep praying. And whatever you do, keep on pondering. We'll see you tomorrow morning. God bless. Bye for now.